Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. All right, we're back. It's Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, the official podcast of WFAT, and actually our first formal session since World Congress wrapped up. Pleased to be joined by Dennis Coonan here. Him and I met, let's call it formally over a Guinness, I think, in one of the socials in Ireland. He's currently working for Children's Hospital Colorado as the manager of the Sports Medicine Center. Dennis, appreciate you carving in some time waiting on me here on this end. Really appreciate seeing you again in the chat we had there. So you're in Colorado, you're at a sports medicine center. Give us a rundown, give our audience a rundown on what you're doing and where and how you're doing it.
Absolutely. Thanks, James. Yeah, that Guinness was delicious, more delicious than any Guinness I've ever had anywhere else in the world. So, yeah, thanks for having me. I work at the Children's Hospital Colorado, which is headquartered in Aurora, Colorado, but the Denver area. I currently oversee the Sports Medicine Center and a team of almost 80 athletic trainers. We have athletic trainers in various settings, everything from supporting our providers in clinic, both our primary care team plus our sports surgeons. They also go into the OR with our surgeons as their first assist, so they're prepping grafts and all of that. And then then we have a team that does our high schools that are embedded with high schools in the area. We have about 27 high schools that we've partnered with. And then the rest are club athletic trainers. So they work directly with club sports out in the community. Most of them are fully embedded with those clubs. So they're every day for practices and games and all of that sort of thing. And we have a handful of PRNs as well. I also oversee the sports nutrition program, which is we have a couple of sports dietitians, and they see patients throughout the day, throughout the week, as well as help us with community talks and developing educational materials and such. So I'm sort of at the top of that pyramid, so to speak. And then along with me, I get to collaborate very closely with our provider team, our provider leadership, our surgical director and medical director. We meet on a regular basis and develop policies, procedures, protocols, make sure that we're growing this program and running it the right way. And so far, it's been fantastic. I've been in this role for it should be almost 3 years now, and but I've been at the organization for almost 10.
Okay, unreal. So I don't know, like with that, a million places I want to go. I want to get to your, well, maybe not in alphabetical order, but I want to get to what you posted on at World Congress. I think that was great. We didn't have the opportunity to touch on that while we were there on the podcast. And then secondarily to that, or beside that, 80 athletic trainers that you oversee, and in all those different spaces. This to me is always like, this is the message I want to get out through this podcast, is where and how and when and why athletic trainers are so valued in so many different places. Obviously, the reciprocal relationship of those bringing athletic trainers in has to be there. So how has the value been expressed, or how have you been able to capture the value of athletic trainers, being one yourself, obviously, and having some experience there? How does that work, getting into those spaces? wherever you want to take that, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So, it's been a long process, honestly, to get to where we are with 80 athletic trainers or thereabouts. I think we're 78 or something. But um, you know, it took a while where it was very slow process to get one or two athletic trainers hired. They started out when we started the program with a couple in our clinical setting and then a couple in the outreach setting, just to sort of start this program to see how things would go. There was a lot of value showing. We had to really prove the
Mhm.
value of an athletic trainer, especially in an organization who was not accustomed to having athletic trainers on a hospital staff. I have to give a huge shout out to our medical directors, our surgical director, Dr. Jay Albright, who has been here for almost, I think he's pushing 15 years or so here. And then a previous medical director, Aaron Province, who were the ones who really started this, and then my predecessor, Bridget Younger. They they really pushed, and I, getting the physicians to advocate for athletic trainers was huge. They could go into the C-suite with the admin and say, look, this is important. This particular type of profession, they really understand sports and athletes and youth athletes, and they're an asset to us in clinic and out in the community. We really should be looking at them. And after some convincing, they moved on with it, and we said, okay, let's do it, and started implementing out in the community. And what we started to see was huge satisfaction out of the community partners, saying just unbelievable reports coming back about our ATs at these community partners. A soccer club was one of our first ones, and they were just like, it's unbelievable having this athletic trainer there day to day. They handle everything. I feel my kid is really well taken care of, and the coaches were happy, and just everyone's satisfaction went up. And the hospital, as part of their mission, really wants to serve the community. So that was a big piece of us really doing as a big satisfier for them. And then in the clinic setting, we were able to prove that having an athletic trainer as your main support staff in your clinic, you increase patient loads. So our providers were able to see more patients in a day, end the day with no notes that they had to finish, and all they had to do was sign them,
Yeah.
and they were happy. The patients were happy. Patient satisfaction scores started going up, volume started going up, and after that, it was just off to the races.
Yeah, starts small. Obviously, takes some work. That's just a snap of the fingers, and you're there. So I think that's important to hear for
Yeah.
smaller countries, smaller organizations, students coming out. Right, like it takes hard work, obviously, but it also does take a skill set that should be valued, and it needs to be showcased, and not just on the sidelines or taping ankles. And I made a post yesterday about just taping ankles. Right? Hey, so you tape ankles for a living? Well, I mean, not really. Like very rarely in between, right? And you showcased here with the breadth of where the practice of athletic training, athletic therapy can fit, and I think that's massive to start conversations and to have conversations of handling grafts in a surgical room, right, in an OR, being on the sidelines. Yeah, that's part of it, but it fits everywhere. It's a skill set that travels. It's a health
Everywhere.
profession, right?
We even have ATs in with assigned to trauma providers. So when they go into the emergency room to handle a kid coming out of a car accident or a catastrophic injury, the AT is right there by their side as they go in, and they help with reductions and all sorts of different things in the trauma room as well. So I mean, it's we've been able to really expand what an AT is able to do within this hospital, and really showcase the talents.
Yeah, outstanding. Congratulations on that, man. That's a big task, obviously, overseeing that and being a part of it and watching it grow and being right there hands on. That's massive. And it's massive for for our listenership that's out there to hear these kinds of things. So appreciate that for sure. Backtrack a little bit to your career. You're at, I don't know, top of the pyramid, whatever you want to say. Like, I get that you're not an ego guy that's like, oh, I'm not a leader, but at the same time, like, you've made it to that point where now you're overseeing this. So where did the interest start in athletic training for you? And did you have one in high school, or where did that sort of spark come from? And did you see yourself in a position like you're in now?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, it's James Gardner here, host of Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, the official podcast of the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. We are excited to announce the next International Athletic Training and Therapy Day on February 12th, 2026. IATTD 26. This year's theme is Elevating Health Worldwide. We're calling on all athletic trainers, athletic therapists, and sport rehabilitators across the world to join us in celebrating our shared profession on a global scale. During IATTD 26, we'd love to hear from individuals, organizations, associations, societies, academic programs, and more about the impact of our colleagues in elevating health for their patients, clients, and communities. There are a number of ways you can participate via social media and in your communities. Share stories. Tell us about a day in your life as an athletic therapist, athletic trainer, or sport rehabilitator. Give a shout out to an athletic trainer, athletic therapist, or sport rehabilitator who's positively impacted you as a professional or you as an athlete. Ask athletes and patients to share their thoughts on the value of ATs and sport rehabilitators in their lives. Create a fun video to highlight you in your setting or community. When you post to social media, be sure to use the hashtag IATTD26 and tag us.
Yeah, man, it's a as the saying goes, a long and winding road.
Bizarre.
But I did have an athletic trainer in high school. To be fair, and I mean, I just knew him as, Trainer Bob was his name. And I didn't play football. I played some of the auxiliary sports. I played soccer and I played tennis and I was playing some other stuff. And back in those days, the athletic trainers were focused on the football team. And so I had a couple of injuries in high school and I went to him and he gave me time, but not the same amount of focus that I felt like others were getting. And I didn't really understand. I just, my shoulder hurt. So I'd go in and he'd give me some exercises and then, that was that. And then I usually ended up just going to a doctor or, something like that. But we did have one, and I started to think like, man, like that's kind of I didn't even realize that was a job. Like you
Right.
could just do that, and I at first I thought he was just volunteering his time. Like, oh, he's just a guy that likes to be around sports, and just happened to know how to tape some things. But then I got to college, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to Iowa State University. I had no idea where I wanted to go with my career. Thought psychology, maybe biology. I didn't know. And then about midway through my sophomore year, my advisor was like, dude, you got to pick something. Like, you got to pick a major. And I was like, well, I really don't know what I want to do. And they asked me the simple questions. What do you like to do? And I'm like, well, I like sports. I like medical stuff. And, kind of that. And she was like, you need to be an athletic trainer. And I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And then I realized that, oh, I know what that is. Those are, I watch all these sports. That's those guys that run out on the field and when somebody's hurt. And so I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And so then, I got enrolled in the sort of entry level basic athletic training course, which came with you shadowing hours, with current ATs and current AT students. And I just fell in love with it. I'm like, man, I think this is exactly where I want to be. And you know, took it from there. I mean, that's really what sparked my interest. And I had some incredible mentors at Iowa State, some who are still there, Mark Coberly and Mary Meyer, just to name a couple, who were there when I was there and are still there teaching and perform and still working. And Mark is now the director of sports medicine, and Mary's the program um, what's the title? Whatever. Program director.
Leader.
That's
Anyway,
the name.
yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And phenomenal, right? Like it just takes
Yeah.
a little spark and then connecting. Yeah, sports are pretty cool and medical stuff is pretty cool, or human movement or biomechanics or whatever. And then just putting those things together. And then again, circles back to this can be a job, right? Like this can be a thing. It can be employment. We can find a job or we can push in and make some headway in different spaces that it's not currently being utilized in. Again, a brilliant capture. I love hearing people's stories of how they found it, and then the evolution kind of as you get to where you are now, which is, I don't think any of us see it, when we're starting out, that's the job, or you think you're going to go one direction and you end up another way, but somehow you end up, still in this profession. And at least for myself, I left reinvigorated from WFAT, where not, I'm not going to say I'm at a roadblock, but in my career, it's kind of like, okay, what else can we do? What else is out there? Am I doing everything that I can be doing? And then you go to this and you see I can't even capture with words, but like breadth is the only word that I can come up with. It's not a big enough word of like where and how much this profession is doing across the
Yeah.
globe in different settings, which again, you've touched on it, where you are in Colorado. And again, joined by Dennis Coonan. Dennis, I'll throw it just as we go on my tangent to World Congress. You presented on a topic of interest, obviously. Talk a little bit about where the interest arose and what that topic was at WFAT and World Congress, and then we'll spin it off of that.
Yeah, sure. I, did a workshop with my colleague Matt Brewer, and we did a talk on essentially risky biomechanics for upper extremity sports. And we just focused mainly on a couple of different areas of the body where you can quickly identify poor mechanics that can lead to upper extremity injuries in various sports, but it's really adaptable to just about any sport if you utilize it. That interest honestly came for a few years ago. I mean, I've always been interested in sort of the biomechanics and sort of like why do injuries occur? Why
Right.
does this person get hurt doing the exact same motion that this person did? This one blows an ACL, this one nothing. And I've always thought that it's been fascinating to me. A few years back, my colleague Matt and I, we started digging into youth baseball. Is really where we really dug really deep into it because we started, our providers actually were mentioning to us, man, we're seeing a huge spike in injuries like elbow and shoulder injuries in these kids. And one of our doctors was like, man, I'd love to start a baseball clinic or like a sort of a specialty clinic. And but from that, Matt and I decided we really wanted to dig in and maybe do some research on what is causing this, and are there some risky pitching mechanics, specifically pitching, that might be the root cause. I mean, coaching has changed over the years. There's been more emphasis on velocity versus like biomechanical form. And so, we started looking at it and we started to identify 4 or 5 different really important pieces of the pitching motion that if you're going to make that change, you got to make it when they're 10, 11 years old. You can't
That's it.
make it when they're 18 years old
Right.
and they're throwing 97. I mean, they're not going to change their mechanics.
Right.
Um, so anyway, so that's really what it started. And we have a great biomechanics lab here at Children's Hospital, and we were able to get in there and mess around with some things and do some data capture. And from there, we presented on it at several conferences around the country, and just sort of adapted it to what we felt like was important for those conferences. And then when WFAT came about, we submitted a talk similar to about baseball, and they asked, "Hey, do you think you could adapt that to something more broad?" Because baseball is just not really that big of a sport worldwide. It is in some pockets of the world, but
Right.
and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so that's what we did. We adapted it to be a more generalized talk and workshop, and I think it went over pretty well.
Yeah, no, absolutely received very well. And I think this is where our conversation started, over a Guinness or under a Guinness, depending on how you look at it. But
The bottom of a Guinness.
yeah, but fascinating, on my end is the why and the biomechanics of how we get hurt or don't get hurt, or like you talked on, but also the like really fascinating on how far biomechanics and the adaptation of human movement has come as a science to generate velocity, right? How am I going to torque this? How am I going to load this? How am I going to tilt
Ah,
this? How am I going to rotate that in order to generate the most velocity? There's no happy medium. You know what I mean? There's not like you can't be perfectly sound mechanics. You and I could throw the same way, and my UCL might go and yours might not.
absolutely
Which is,
correct. And you might throw 95 and I might throw 85 in the exact same mechanics. And there's
right,
like a lot of intrinsic stuff that goes on that,
right. which
yeah,
which I think keeps the mill churning in terms of interest level as a practitioner, right? For your end, for my end, for your research. And I think this is exactly probably where it started. But youth sport, you talk to coaches, and sometimes it's parents, and sometimes it's players or former players that have played it in the past. And you can walk in a room with those youth athletes like you talk 10, 11, 12. It's like they don't need sport specific training. They need individual specific training within the parameters of the sport And I
Yeah.
think movement training is what is should be or could be heightened, right? In terms of if I ask a room full of coaches of U11, U12, U14, whatever sport it is, what is the greatest force producer or component of movement in throwing a baseball, for example? I get a lot of different responses when I ask that question, and typically none of them are the thing that matters the most of that ground force and
You
generating
got it.
from the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah, the whole transfer of force. I mean, the power is generated in the legs, right? And if you can't efficiently transfer that to the arm, then there's a breakdown there. You're going to try to generate power from somewhere else. The arm should be a whip. I mean, in
Yeah,
baseball, I mean, it should be a whip. I mean, you should be just the end of the full kinetic chain. And but people who have dysfunction in that chain, um, they try to generate the power by increasing arm speed using muscle versus
right.
just letting it whip,
Yeah.
and that's causes a lot of problems for especially youth pitchers.
Yeah, and a fascinating sort of example through the latest, baseball MLB playoffs and what each one of those pitchers look drastically different. You get the Jays rookies, 22, throws right over the top.
Yeah,
The guy from Japan who can bend himself in half and throw at
right.
97 seemingly effortlessly, right? And it's just it's such a brilliant sport. I love the sport, love studying the sport. I think that's a biomechanical analysis of just like if you want to geek out, dive into the throwing
Oh,
motion of a pitcher for sure.
complicated. I mean, everybody's a little different. Yeah, I agree with you, man. It is so complicated. And I tell people this too, is that motion, the pitching motion is one of the fastest, if not the fastest recorded human movement.
That's right.
It's faster than the blink of an eye. And so, that's what's so fascinating is that that arm whip is so quick. I mean, if you're a hitter and you blink
Yeah.
as the ball is about to be released, you're going to miss it. You're
Yeah.
going to,
Yeah, it ties in really nicely. 6 to 8,000 degrees per second of rotation in the shoulder, right? 50 Newton meters of force to a ligament in the elbow at maximum external rotation that can only tolerate somewhere between 25 and 30 Newton meters of force, I think,
right.
in cadaveric studies. So you're working uphill to begin with. For our listeners out there, go check out some of our previous. We did a 3-part series on Tommy John with Mike Frostad,
Oh,
who's currently
awesome.
he's currently the director of player health or sport medicine with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. We had a former major league pitcher on to talk about his surgery. And then, a sport chiropractor here in Canada talking about the biomechanics. It's a 3-part series. You can flip back through the sessions and check that out. It's a nice little segue. But Dennis Coonan, kind enough to join us today, all the way from Colorado in Mountain Time. Get the beautiful background work in there.
Yeah.
Spin around, look out the window. Maybe it's a forced background, but hey.
Yeah, I wish that was where I was looking
Yeah.
at right now. That's about 3 minutes from my house, so it's
There you
not
go.
not far.
There
Yeah.
you go. No, that's awesome. Really appreciate the time. Maybe just before we sort of, cut this thing off, happy to do this again. Happy to dive in on some of your research and stuff as well in another session. I think this leads to plenty of other discussions. But before our audience gives way and don't want to take up too much of your time as well, I know you're busy. What does a typical day look like for you there at the hospital? And how many conversations are you having? I think that was my piece taken away from World Congress and just being a part of this profession is like, face-to-face conversations, they matter, right? Like they make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on that note, just sort of, your day-to-day ops and how many conversations you're having a day and how many different rooms.
Lot of conversations. I will say this. I mean, I am extremely fortunate to have a leadership team that reports directly to me as well, that helps me oversee each of those individual settings. So thankfully, those 80 athletic trainers or so aren't all directly reporting up through me. They go up through a secondary leader and then that comes to me. So but I'm in conversations all day long, whether it's with other athletic trainers,
Yeah.
sports nutrition, with our doctors, surgeons, APPs. I mean, it's other administrators. Right now we're working on a lot of new policies, or protocols, I should say, that we're trying to get approved, and some other initiatives as well. So a lot of the conversations I'm having right now are with legal, with our legal department, risk management, with uh, some of our medical billing people, because we're trying to get so that we can bill for AT services in our
Okay.
clinics.
Yeah.
We're working on that process right now, and the state of Colorado is kind of funky when it comes to that. So we're working through the legal ramifications of all of that. And so day to day, it's different every day. Honestly, it's whatever initiatives we sort of have on my plate, and involving the right people from different departments. But I will say it is a very interdepartmental role. I am constantly reaching across and needing help from this department, this department, this department, or they're reaching out to me, and very collaborative. And so my day to day is a lot of meetings,
Yep.
a lot of emails and things. But man, I really enjoy it. I mean, because in the end, 90% of my day I get to talk about being an athletic trainer. Here, what can we do better? How can we be better as an organization? What can our athletic trainers do to have a bigger impact on the community or in the clinic, or
I love it.
you know at conferences? I'm always pushing people to go speak at these conferences, like at WFAD. I mean, that was an example. But yeah, those conversations, and just to touch on what you said, those in-person conversations, like we met, at in Ireland, and
Mhm.
the people that I ran into there that I probably in a normal day to day would never have crossed paths with, or probably the rest of my career if I had never gone to that conference,
Yeah.
with some of these practitioners from Ireland and England and um, Japan, and all these different places that came. And I mean, it was such an incredible experience getting to hear people's backgrounds and experiences and how they got to where they are in their country or their city. And um, not to mention, we had some really big support from the NATA leadership. I mean, the NATA president was there. Our new executive director, Molly, was there. Got to converse with them quite a bit in a different scenario than if they had been at like the NATA conference, where it's such a grand, thing that, they're getting pulled in a million directions to do things. This was a much smaller but a much more intimate gathering. And man, I can't stress enough how incredible a conference it was. Well put together. Just I felt supported as a speaker, as an attendee. It was just it was a good experience all the way around.
Easy segue. 2027 Edinburgh. We'll put I don't know, whatever we're gonna put down. We could have another Guinness there, maybe Sierra or Scotch or something like that.
Yeah, I
But
mean, if
there, that one's
twist
coming.
my arm,
Yeah,
yeah.
if we have to. He's Dennis Coonan, working for Children's Hospital Colorado as the manager of the Sports Medicine Center. Really appreciate your time here. I'll let you sort of end this for words of wisdom for the listeners out there. Anything you want, anywhere you want to take it, but truly do appreciate your time, and sincerely, let's do this again, and we'll dive in on the research side a little bit more.
Love to.
And go from there. But great to see you again. Glad you made it back there safely. They obviously need you there, and in a big role out there in Aurora, Colorado. Dennis Coonan, thank you so much for your time. Over to you to close it out.
Yeah, James, thank you so much, man. This has been a blast, and I really do look forward to doing this again. I would just like to leave the listeners with a couple of pearls of wisdom that I have picked up along the years, and that is, one, if you truly love being an athletic trainer, um, get more involved. Get get more involved in volunteering for committees or organizations, different aspects of the profession. If you feel like you really love the profession, I can't tell you how much more love I have for it once I got more involved. You feel like you're making a bigger difference and you feel more engaged with the profession. That's one. And two, if you're feeling like you're just quite sure what path to take, don't hesitate to reach out to somebody who's been there, done that. It could be me, could be James, could be, anybody, but find a mentor, find an older athletic trainer to find out what they did to do, to get to where they're at. Why, did they ever feel like they were going to burn out or feel like they needed to leave the profession for whatever the reason? Before you make that decision, talk to someone else who's maybe made some tough decisions to stay in the profession and has benefited from it. And those two things, man, it's a great profession. It'll treat you well, but you gotta get back to it as well.
Amazing. Great capture and a great closeout. Look forward to doing this again. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you again for your time. To our listeners out there, thank you for your time. Send some feedback, send Dennis some feedback, send myself some feedback. Talk to each other about this profession. I think that's how it grows. It grows with the conversation. It grows with the community. It grows with all of us. So thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
James, appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Soon. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com. CONSULT@firststartherapy.com. On Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.